Good morning again. My name is, as you know, is Roy Kessel with the Sports Philanthropy Network. We're glad that you're here with us for this part of our webinar series. As you've seen on the site, we're doing these every Monday, Wednesday, Friday from now through the end of May at least. And we'll continue doing webinars. It probably just won't quite be at that pace. We also have opportunity for you to look at the podcasts that have been coming out. So we've ramped that up as well. So webinars are coming out Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Podcasts are coming out Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. So we've got a busy production schedule to make sure everything gets out. And really the goal here is to make sure that we can have everybody getting an opportunity to learn about the topics they want, make some more connections, really feel a sense of community as we're all going through this challenge together. And my goal is that by the time things start clearing up and we're ready to go, there'll be a whole slew of new relationships and new opportunities for people so that we can go through and connect people. That's really the mission of our organization. And so we'll follow up a little bit more on that in the coming weeks, but I know most of you get our information already, but I encourage you to follow our social media accounts. We're pretty much everywhere, from Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, and all kinds of other places. So as we do that, there's content going out on different platforms. And if there's topics and things that you would like to see us cover, I'd like to have you let us know. I know, for example, from a lot of the feedback we got, good morning, Kayla. From a lot of the feedback we got, Doug is helping us do a town hall meeting in 2 weeks, which is going to be on adaptive sports. And I was just on the phone with Chicago Public Schools, and they're going to come and participate that day as well. And so if you've got organizations that fit in that space, but I encourage you to look at the webinar schedule. We're continually updating that and adding new content and new speakers, and the goal is to create that value. So I'd like to have us kind of go around and introduce yourselves, do a quick introduction, and then we're going to turn everything over to Evan so he can go through his presentation and all of the great work that he does. We'll start with, I want to introduce Kayla Bradham, who's our VP of Community Development, and Kayla's done a great job of connecting with organizations. So we'll start with Kayla and her introduction, and then I'll just kind of call on people to go around real quick, and then we'll go to Evan.
Hey everybody, good morning. Like Roy said, I'm Kayla Bradham. I live in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Feel free to reach out to me with any concerns or questions you have about Sports Philanthropy Network and how we can help your organization.
Okay, Doug?
My name is Doug Garner. I'm at University of Texas Arlington. I run our adapted sports program, and I coach our men's wheelchair basketball team.
Okay. Gregory?
Hey, I'm Gregory Goodman. I live in Roanoke, Virginia. I'm a family self-sufficiency coordinator with one of the housing authorities. And I've been doing a little bit of internship with some of the local sports teams. So I'm kind of looking to break into the foundation side of sports. So just here to learn.
Fantastic. Mark?
Hi, how you guys doing? I'm Mark Hendry. I live in Newport Beach, California. I'm a part-time art director for an action sports company. And then I actually work with Evan with Cintri. I do director of photography and cinematography and editing with Evan and our company, Cintri.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thanks.
Elizabeth?
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Finlayson. I am the CEO and lead coach with the Nonprofit Coach. And basically, we just teach nonprofits how to raise money for their missions and do strategic planning. Thanks.
Great. Jess?
Hi, I'm Jess with Girls in the Game in Chicago, and I'm a part of the development department here.
Fantastic. Mary? Mary with us? Mary?
Yeah, hold on.
Okay. There we go.
Well, I was trying to do a different background, and clearly it didn't work. So I'll work on that in a minute. But Anyway,
Looks like you're in outer space flying
I
through all of
feel
the
like
asteroids.
it too. I live outside of Atlanta, and I started a foundation about 5 years ago that awards need-based scholarships to local kids to play recreational team sports.
Terrific. Well, I think that it's great the diversity we have here, the different types of organizations. And I know from speaking to Evan and from the work that he and Mark have done that there's really, oh, there we go. There's a good view. Your background looks fine down there. That what's really interesting is how different organizations utilize or don't utilize video and how effective they are at that. I think one of the things Evan's going to walk through is some of the challenges that are out there, and we all see so much content flying at us right now. If you think about how many, if you have time to play on social media, how many posts you go through in a day and how many capture your attention, right? It's almost to the point where if it's just text, we don't look at it at all. If it's a photo, we'll slow down a little bit. If it's video, maybe we'll stop and watch a few seconds. And I think that's a good intro to turn it over to Evan. Evan's gonna jump in here, and he's got the ability to share his screen now. So he'll give you a little bit of his background and then kind of take us through that presentation.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for that, Roy. Nice to meet you all. Appreciate you all coming today too from all corners of the US, which is amazing that we can all be here today on Zoom as well. So appreciate that. So yeah, co-founder of Cintri with Mark. Actually, he did leave that out. Was a bit humble as well. He's a co-founder with me. I'm actually located in Boston, Massachusetts. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Had a bit of a presentation to share, but definitely want to keep the session interactive. It seems as though that a few of you definitely have roles within marketing, within the company that you represent. So definitely want to make it as interactive as possible. And if you have any questions at all throughout, don't hesitate to interrupt. But I'll go ahead and give you a bit of an overview first of who we are, how we got to content creation, and then give you a bit of insight into how to make content video effective within your different distribution strategies as well, the whens, the when nots, etc. So just to even take a step further back, personally, I used to compete professionally in freestyle skiing, represented the US in World Cups internationally, World Championships, etc. Retired in 2014. And everyone affiliated with Cintri competed professionally at some capacity within action sports. Mark, on the skiing side, he was heavily into professional filming as well within skiing. A few others on our team snowboard. And that's sort of the spawn of how we founded the company as well. I think there was a natural draw to creating content and filming each other on the slopes, skateboarding, whatever it may be. And then taking that content, really curating it in a fancy way and distributing it on the internet to just get likes, get recognition, get sponsors, whatever it may be. Then naturally, as you get older, your body starts to hurt a little bit more and you're not able to really take the falls that you once were able to when you were 17. So ended up finishing school, University of Vermont, that's where I actually met Mark. And that's where the idea of starting a company really initiated. We were taking our skill set in content creation from the slopes into then creating for the brands that represented the action sports industry and then sports in general, creating content also for the University of Vermont. And it naturally just turned into something a little bit larger. And we've been able to create content for a lot of great brands out there, like Red Bull, and a lot of icons as well, like Wiz Khalifa, Camille Kostic, and technology companies too, and many others in sports. So that's just like the natural evolution of how we got to here today. I'm based in Boston, Mark's in LA. We're traveling back and forth consistently. And we find that our sweet spot is within that short form story showing format. So content that's within 30 seconds, telling high impactful commercials or stories within a concentrated amount of time, tying back to Roy's point, sort of that it's really difficult to capture the attention of the audience and intertwining a story, a company story, and really relating to the audience is something not easy to do. So with that said, go ahead and just start the bit of the presentation here. If you're able to see my screen, okay. Just have to find out how to minimize so I'm looking at all of your heads. Perfect. I have to be able to see my own screen too. So these are just a few different categories of, we're going to predominantly be speaking about digital media, not really television today. So for all of you that are representing companies and looking to get a bigger viewership, broader audience, more attention to whatever platform or whatever message or whatever you're selling is, this would be great to take in from a digital perspective. So these are, again, a variety of different categories that you can see within digital advertisements, commercials, social media, live casting. You can see that there's been a massive transition from live casting on just television to the digital space as well on a variety of platforms. Like you can go live on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. Then these are also a variety of different types of content you could create, from like 3D animations, infographics, then your informational and educational pieces, whether they are internal HR videos to train up employees, and or if you have a product that you want to get out to the masses, selling it in a way that's informational or educational to teach people how to actually utilize that. Then events content and short form storytelling. So I think a great example, like how to really make it tangible, is when do you use what and how do you use it and how do you get the most effect out of the content that you're distributing? So I think a great way to start is with a tech company. For the sake of discretion, I'm just not going to mention the name, but when we first started working with this specific technology company, we noticed that when they released a culture video prior to us working with them, that the culture video was all done internally with their internal media team. And it was all interview style, meaning that there were just different representatives of the company talking in front of a camera. And what we realized is that it just didn't have necessarily the best effect or the best display of what that company represents. And they didn't get as many views as they were hoping to, because they weren't capturing the company at parties. They weren't capturing them within the office, wherever it may be, to really capture the excitement. So when we first started working with that company, we took a step back and began working with them in terms of how do you go ahead and take the approach of really distributing content in a fashion that really resonates with people so they can understand like the excitement, the natural nuances of your company that makes you specific. So that was just one example of, you know, you're filming a culture video. Perhaps it doesn't make sense to have interviews throughout the entire piece. Maybe for a segment to have your CEO or somebody within the company explain why it's so great, but then capturing the essence of what really makes the fabric of that company. Something else that one of the other tech brands that was doing it incorrectly when we first started working with them was that they were taking digital white papers and posting that on Instagram, which Instagram is not necessarily meant for the best. You're not going to receive the best yield within the B2B space on a platform like Instagram when you're showcasing a white paper. And they were wondering why they were only getting 10 likes per post when they have 20,000 followers on LinkedIn, and they were ultimately acquired for over $1 billion. It's like, how can you be at one point here, so financially successful, and then have this massive following on LinkedIn, and then down here on Instagram as well? So those are just like subtle nuances in terms of the when nots. Then on the flip side, another customer that we work with in the B2B space came to us with an ask. It was actually extremely recently. They asked us to create a commercial, a 45-second commercial, purely with post-production, because obviously all filming is, you can't film right now. All budgets are frozen in terms of having anybody on set, and complete mess there. So what we ultimately did was we created a commercial that was 45 seconds explaining how this company created an application to detect symptoms for the coronavirus. And the company utilized that not only on LinkedIn, because they're a B2B company in hopes of distributing it to potential economic buyers, but they also utilize it in email campaigns, email blasts. And that was the right way to go about it, because it had direct effect and generated meetings with economic buyers from companies that they were hoping to sell to. So I think I'm going to go ahead and pause there. Any questions so far in terms of just like subtle nuances of what to create, when to create, and where to distribute?
And if you want, you can type the questions into the chat box, and then I can call on you when we have breaks. But Evan's going to cover things, and I encourage you to get specific. You've got him here, and he has some great ideas of how you can use content and multi-purpose content. All right.
Yeah, you definitely. If there's any questions pertaining to any campaign that you're hosting as well, I would love to help out, shed some ideas if anything helps there too.
Okay, well, we'll have people jump in when they get to that point.
Perfect. Yeah, so I would say then, like, those were very good examples in terms of how you work with companies within the B2B space. But a lot of the content, a lot of companies, they're looking to sell into the B2C space as well. So that's when your Facebooks, your Instagrams, even YouTube, et cetera, that's really when it will come into play and how you create content there. So for instance, we were working with Red Bull at Red Bull Crashed Ice, and they're not going to be taking content that we work with and collaborate with them on and post it on LinkedIn, because you always have to have the end result in mind and who you're really looking to target. They're looking to target consumers all over in hopes of them purchasing Red Bull. So they made a heavy investment, and they continue to do so with Red Bull Media House on ad spend through Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, with consistent output of the content we were creating. They were utilizing stories as well throughout to keep up that engagement too. So you weren't going to see those posts on any B2B platform. And it was all very high octane, very quick transition, very fast paced content too, because that appeals to the quote unquote epicness that Red Bull always tries to affiliate itself with. So it's a blend there of intertwining the message with distributing that content on the correct platforms as well, just to ensure that you're going to make that reach hit the correct audience. It's definitely vital when you're reaching out and creating any type of commercial. So to even take a step back from that further, when you're creating content, when you're creating your plan, whatever your strategy is, just really think and have the end goal in mind. So who are you looking to target? Why are you looking to target them? What are you looking to target them with? And then most importantly, how? So the how is extremely important as well. So is it going to be a variety of pictures? Is it going to be blog posts? Is it going to be video? Is it going to be 5-minute testimonials? Is it going to be short commercials? And all those questions, the how, why, what, and who is very important in terms of that connection with your audience as well. So let's say if a technology company has a multitude of new products that they're looking to release, perhaps it makes sense to not have one 5-minute video explaining them all, but 5 30-second videos that they can use on LinkedIn, create ad spend. Let's say they're looking to target C-suite executives within the IT space, on the West Coast of the United States. You can then take those 30-second commercials and have an entire campaign on LinkedIn and distribute those videos with that ad spend and ensure that they're going after the correct audience versus a pray and spray approach where you just post a video randomly and it can be connecting with people that don't really have a positive or any correlation at all with your business. And on the flip side there too, if you're in the B2C space, perhaps again, LinkedIn isn't the correct approach. Understanding who your target audience is and where they are and their demographics too. So age, whatever that may be. And then having it prescribed when you're distributing that content as well. And then something to also consider too is this a video that you're doing a quick recap of a Christmas party or a holiday party that you're hosting at the end of the year? You know, if that's the case and you don't have a large budget for it, perhaps it doesn't make sense to bring in an external team, but an internal team in this sense. So there's tools out there that aren't that expensive that you can just typically use with your iPhone as well. These are fantastic cameras filming in 4K. And you put that on iMovie and you can quickly chop up a video within a couple of hours. So you can attach that guy, pointing at the camera is holding what's called a gimbal. So they make smaller gimbals for iPhones that completely stabilize the shot, and it enhances the quality of the pixels as well tremendously when you're following anybody moving around. So I would say if your budget is small and you're filming a holiday party and you want to create a hype video, and you know your target audience, go ahead and film it internally and distribute it on those correct platforms. But let's say that your company came into some sum of capital, you realize that you're making a more strategic investment into commercials, digital commercials, and you want to make 5 of them. Perhaps it makes sense to bring in an external team in that sense, and then have them help you on the strategy, the design, the storyboarding, the scripting up front, and then the actual production execution, post-production, and animation as well. Because it can get quite complex if you're not familiar with cameras, editing, or just the entire production process.
Hey, Evan, I don't know if you're able to see the chat, but I saw that Gregory asked you a question about the shift towards newer social media platforms such as TikTok or Twitch or some of these new platforms that are being utilized. If you just want to elaborate some more on that.
Yeah, definitely. We've seen that TikTok has made a massive leap within just the last few months. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with professional lacrosse player Paul Rabel, but I was actually looking at his Instagram yesterday, and something really clever that he did, reposting a TikTok post on Instagram, was just having himself in his bedroom trying on all the different PLL jerseys, and then ultimately taking the Atlas jersey, because that's the team that he represents, and then holding on to that one, wearing it, and taking the rest of the jerseys and throwing it in the hamster there, and then in his hamper, just showcasing his commitment. But it's unbelievable that TikTok is definitely a new fashion and a new form of social media that's clearly able to integrate into other platforms as well. So by reposting a TikTok post on Instagram too. But to be honest, from the campaigns that Mark and I have done, no one has actually hired us to create any content to be distributed on TikTok. I would say a lot of it seems to be individually focused. So for instance, in that case, Paul was able to literally take his iPhone, probably stand it on his TV stand, and have himself filmed in selfie mode the entire time. With that, I would say, is there like any specific question just in regards to the newer platforms for potentially a campaign that you're looking to release?
I think one of the questions that we've heard is that there's a perception, specifically with TikTok, for example, that it's primarily targeted at a very young demographic. It's tends to be sort of middle school type of age and videos and things like that. And from a brand perspective, one of the concerns is how that's going to come across if that's not really directly your demographic. Is there a way to incorporate that where, for example, it's still got the young look and feel and images, but maybe that's something that's targeted to moms or for in this community, like sports organizations that have kids that are participating from the middle school and high school level.
Definitely. Yeah, I would say that in order to make that reach, if your brand typically hasn't been reaching in that capacity, I would say the way that to go about it, it seems as though the content that's distributed on TikTok is much more organic, where you're not going to see a full-on 30-second highly produced commercial. It's much more natural and a bit comedic as well in terms of the content that I've been seeing on it. It's a bit goofier, not to put it down, and it's a lot more natural. So, perhaps if there was a sports team that was looking to rally behind TikTok and really utilize it as a means of reaching target audience, whether it's the future fans, the youth, I would say having if we were to make a campaign right now on the fly, having it be a lot more natural about individual players on that team with their own TikTok accounts, or having the core account for that specific team with their TikTok account, showcasing different players on the team doing something funny or doing something clever that ties back to the sports team and their brand as well.
Great, thank you.
I think a lot what I've seen with TikTok, at least utilizing the action sports space, because TikTok right now is like very heavily utilized in the skateboard industry. The one thing with TikTok is I think you have the ability to edit short form within the application itself. So similar to how Vine used to be, if you guys remember the application Vine, I think TikTok has a limit at like 15 seconds, but you do have the ability to edit in Suite. So you can go out and film like selfie cams of yourself doing tricks at a skate park, and then you're able to cut them together in like a comedic fashion. And at least what I've seen in the action sports industry, there's a lot of influencers that are heavily affiliated with that. And going back to Roy's point of like the target demographic being more of the middle school, high school, and I'd say early adult phase, because as myself as a 23-year-old, I see a lot of friends and family that are like, oh, are you on TikTok? Have you seen this person, that person? And I think the power of influencers, which is super apparent now in both the B2B space and the B2C space, where we see brands and companies doing paid advertisement or paid ad spend with, sports athletes on Instagram. It'll say like paid partnership with them. I think that's why TikTok has been super popular, and a large reason why, companies are able, or brands are able to utilize TikTok, is because there's a lot of influential people with a very large following on there. So also just reiterate back to the point where you're asking how to reach like a target demographic that might not be on TikTok. I think because Evan's point earlier, how TikTok can integrate in other applications such as Facebook or Instagram. And also the fact that TikTok is a platform where you can export videos and you can put them on other platforms. I'd say maybe that would be the best utilization to target maybe a mom or a dad or someone, in their like mid 40s that isn't like very social media or tech savvy. But for the most part, yeah, TikTok I think would be your best deployment for distribution if you're working with a brand or a sports company. Like let's just say you're working with a football team, and mostly people that are very, very into that space would be high school kids or like middle school kids that are in like Pee-wee football league. So it's how do you utilize icons, legends, influencers within that space to market your brand or your campaign through TikTok.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that, Mark. Perfect. Any other questions before we keep moving? Oh, saw one come through. If someone wanted to, so I think this question was from Elizabeth. If someone wanted to put out some quality sound, choirs, individual singers, what are the easiest platforms to use for creating and editing sound? Ooh, that's a really good question. A lot of sound that when we're editing sound, I've typically done it in Premiere Pro. I know there's a DJ software, perhaps like Ableton as well, but Mark, I'm glad that you're on the phone as well, because you do a lot of the editing for a lot of our audio engineering. Are there any other platforms that you utilize outside of Premiere Pro to create quality sound for the videos that we produce?
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, a lot of you guys probably work within the Apple space or Mac. So, Mac comes equipped with an application called GarageBand. And essentially, it's like the most basic form of audio editing, audio creation, live recording, etc. So, what GarageBand can do is, let's hypothetically say you are recording a podcast and you have the podcast microphone directly inputted into your laptop, which is just via USB. You're able to pull up GarageBand and live record that entire podcast session. Or in this case, you can have someone in the studio and have the microphone linked to some sort of device that would plug into your computer. You're able to live record that. And then it's a very simple editing system, such as like iMovie, where you can just drag and drop clips around. You can cut it a little bit. I'm not sure if GarageBand is available for PC and Android. I know that primarily it is an iOS software. So in the past, like I was able to mix and master some audio in GarageBand. I don't do that very often. There's another Adobe software called Adobe Audition, which is like a more glorified version of GarageBand. Then, like Evan said, there's Ableton. There's one other music editing software that's very similar to Ableton, but Ableton is like the top tier. But I would say for quality sound, it's not more about the editing platform. It's just making sure you have the highest quality sound for whatever you're looking to do. And then there are really simple applications where you can Audacity works. But yeah, I think it's just more about getting the upfront, like the highest quality sound upfront. And then there are very easy platforms where you can work with it on the back end, like GarageBand. That would probably be my number one recommendation for someone that hasn't like worked within the Adobe suite before, would be GarageBand.
Great. Thanks, guys.
Of course. So there are a lot of options out there. But yeah, to Mark's point again, you can do a lot in post editing, but it is all about the upfront quality in terms of the room that you're recording in, just the general space too, that will have a high effect on the outcome on the back end. Perfect. So I think the exclusivity versus non-exclusivity for a majority of the people on the line today might not necessarily be of utmost importance. But just to give you context into what that means, I'm assuming most of you do already. We're actually spearheading a documentary right now called Closer I Get, and it's featuring 4 action sports athletes who are under 18 that are on the brink of making it professional. And it's a story about ultimately what it takes and the sacrifice it takes for these athletes and their families to get these athletes to that next level as well. And for the distribution, we're talking to a multitude of different potential executive producers and the route that we want to take. And that's when exclusivity and non-exclusivity would come into play. So let's say we were fortunate enough to work with a Netflix. Perhaps they would want to, they would only work with us if we signed an exclusivity agreement with them, or that documentary is only released on Netflix. Where in this case, we're most likely going to go with the non-exclusive route. So we can distribute it on a multitude of different platforms because at the end of the day, that's our best chance of virality as well. Having sponsors affiliated with these athletes posting, friends posting, the more people that you can have post one central core post, the more of an opportunity you have just to cast a wider net into the ecosystem. And if there's a specific hashtag that you have, a handle that you want to tag, that will ultimately just drive higher results as well back to the page, or the end goal that you have of tying back to whatever you want the end viewer to see. And that actually goes back to like different approaches to content distribution too. So before COVID-19 actually happened, we were about to film a pretty decent size golf tournament and help with not only the content creation, but a bit of a strategy around the distribution too. And there's so many players in the in the tournament with great followings from all corners of the U.S. and the world as well. So how we were working with them was to be extremely maniacal on taking that, let's say, core video or core videos that we created for them, and making sure that their social media and marketing team distributes that MP4 file to everyone affiliated with the event, with specific hashtags, handles to tag back. So all eyes back to that central event as well. It's just, versus having, let's say, I would rather have, you could get a better reach by having 10 people with 10,000 followers post than per se one person with 200,000 followers. And even though that one person has double the following than the 10 with 10,000, you have a higher probability of it being distributed at a further reach as well. So that's just something that we've taken into consideration when working with companies on distribution.
Evan, as you're looking at going down on your slide on the social media outlets, and you look at the different options for distribution, one of the questions that a lot of organizations have relates to the licensing of images, and presumably the same thing for video. Obviously, there's services where you can get royalty-free images, but I think the challenge for a lot of organizations is determining even things that are supplied to them oftentimes are supplied by somebody who probably doesn't have the proper license to allow them to then use it in distribution and marketing materials and annual reports and things of that nature.
Yeah, that's something that you have to be pretty maniacal about, especially if you're the person representing your company from a marketing standpoint, where that content is released. You're the middle person in that sense, bridging the gap. So ultimately, it's all about doing your due diligence and ensuring that there's proper contracts in place too, to make sure that you have your own back as well. That if you're working with a third-party provider, for instance, Roy, let's say we provided you with a picture or a video for you to distribute, you would definitely want to have a mutual contract in there, protecting yourself from the fact that, and ensuring that we knew and we did our own due diligence prior to handing over the final delivery. So that's one sense when you're working, let's say, with an outside vendor, bringing in the content. But when you're working internally as well, there's a lot of different platforms that offer stock imagery, stock animation, stock video. And within each video or picture that you're purchasing, they're typically, it's pretty visible in terms of what you're able to utilize for distribution, and or where you need to purchase royalties and where you have the rights, either A, as an individual, and or B, as a company to post to. Looks like we have another question here. Since many organizations work with people under 18, are there additional considerations as well? A lot of posts coming at once.
Yeah,
I'll go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's just using common sense as well with perhaps when you're distributing to an audience that has a large population of kids under 18. I definitely just want to be highly in terms of just making sure, or vigilant to ensure that you're not posting anything that can jeopardize your brand.
Yeah, and I think one of the things to be careful there is, I know when I'm at an event and speaking and people are taking pictures, we always ask the organization if they've got waivers and releases from the participants, because even just general pictures, if you've got kids in the background that are sitting at desks or in chairs or on the floor listening to a presentation, and we're doing it with retired NFL players, you're going to have some kids in the background just as the photos are being taken. And so there's certainly nothing inappropriate in terms of the types of images, but you just want to be careful that you have that permission, because otherwise the parents potentially could raise an issue if their kid ends up on a photo that ends up on social media, and nobody knows which image or which presentation is going to go viral and then be picked up by other outlets.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword of social media, and sometimes inevitable too. Just have to be extremely conscientious.
We got another question from Jess about the ROI on Facebook ads if you don't have a big budget, saying they've been hesitant to jump into that space as a small fish in a big pond. But I think, I'll let you speak to the viability of that area and really being able to target specifically where those ads are and what your spend is.
Definitely. Completely understand with that, Jess. And there's a variety of different strategies you can put into place too, where you're not necessarily locked into ad spend. But before getting into that, the beauty of ad spend as well is you can spend $5 on an ad as well. Going into ad spend doesn't mean you have to spend an astronomical amount of money. I mean, if some of the enterprises of the world, they're putting in millions and millions of dollars into ad spend a year, but you can go as low as spending a dollar. I'm pretty sure for any type of Facebook ad. We've done Facebook ads in the past for ourselves, found that they get a pretty decent sized following. But my recommendation is, if you're going to have a Facebook ad, just ask yourself, what's the outcome that you're hoping to drive? Are you looking to reach a target audience for them to purchase something from you, to sign up for something? So really understanding your demographics before creating that ad, even if you are spending $1, just to have that strategy in place. It just ensures that you have a better chance of success. And then something that you can also do too is, if you have a plan to distribute a post, something it's a lot of how the algorithms work in a lot of these platforms is people sharing and liking different posts. So if there's a variety of people connected to those that you're looking to reach out to, and you feel comfortable sending them a message, you can share a post and then have a list lined up of people that you want to target, copy and paste that post and request in a message, perhaps if you feel comfortable, asking them to redistribute the post to, like it, etc. That's an organic, free way that takes a little bit more sweat, but can equate to the outcome that you're looking to get. So it's really thinking about those creative ways to get to that desired outcome, whatever it may be, but really having the end in mind and working backwards from that, and knowing that it really can be as cheap as you want with ad spend on Facebook.
Thanks.
So, of course. So Elizabeth went ahead. What research do you have to do ahead of time to determine where a target audience is? That really depends on the product you're looking to sell, et cetera. I can give you an example. For us, we work specifically within sports, entertainment, and technology. So we've had a massive push actually towards partnerships. So I'll start with partnerships. It sort of took a while for us to recognize that there was a lot of value in that. So we have a small team, and it's difficult for us to be creating these projects, creating these campaigns, and executing on them, all while having to ensure that we're bringing in new business too. So we saw that we're very specific in what we offer, like commercial content, video production, and animation, with a very specific aesthetic on the end result, whether it be for a tech company, sports company, or entertainment. There's a certain authorship within the content that we create. So we were looking for that 1-to-N ratio. How can we find one person that would be able to then sell to 10 people for us? So we found that the agency model for us is extremely helpful. So we're targeting agencies that offer other companies everything under the sun. And then we act as a very specific tool set within their belt when they're reaching out to companies as well. So I think it's just like really thinking about your core business, what you offer, and how you're going to get there. So for any campaign that we release for ourselves, we'll distribute content, and on the ad spend with the demographics we're going after, it's marketing professionals and agencies.
We have a question from Christian in terms of how long you recommend the video be for social media campaign in terms of different platforms. Do you have one length that you like for all social media platforms, or do you prefer to customize them? I know some platforms are, Facebook, for example, you can probably get away with a longer video there than it's going to be good on Twitter or Instagram.
Yep. So again, it's all about preparation. It's a lot like sports, making sure that you have the end goal in mind. So what are you posting? Why are you posting it? If it's a live event, is there something going on at the event at a specific time that you want people to see? Then you might take a step back and realize, okay, maybe it's time to go live on my Facebook account. And I think you can go live on Facebook and Instagram at the same time due to the integration there as well. So possibly going live at that point. Is it a new product that the company has been working on, let's say for a year, behind closed doors, and it's time to get it out? Then maybe you take a step back and realize there's a multitude of different ways we can go about this one product. We have a 60-second interview with the CEO or the product owner talking in front of the camera on the nuances of it, what it took to get there, and how it will affect the market. And then another facet is you can create a commercial around it, like a digital ad or a digital commercial. So something anywhere between 15 to 60 seconds long, showcasing it in an extremely flashy way, not necessarily having somebody talking in front of the camera, but showing how the product works, using animation, close-up shots, whatever that may be, to really just hone in on that specific product. So it really depends on what, why, and the how to. So the how seems to be social media, obviously, but the what and the why, I'd really urge you to ask yourself that, and then work backwards from the end goal.
Great. I know we've got about 10 minutes left, so I want to let Evan go through the rest of his presentation. Then we'll have whatever amount of time we need for questions at the end.
Perfect. Yeah, and I would say a similar response as well, Christian, to that question. Just really asking yourself the end result there that you're wanting. But again, attention spans are short on social media. So the faster you can get a message across to the audience in a compelling way and have them rewatch your video, that's the key. Having them engage with the post and then take action. So if they're rewatching your video multiple times over, it's exactly what you're hoping for. Perfect. So for when you have time later, these are just a variety of social media outlets you can use. My contact is also at the top of the presentation. So if you have any more specific detailed questions about a campaign that you're launching, need some advice there, happy to send an email back with a few ideas, and then just gave a few examples as well in regards to B2B and then B2C, and these are all projects that we did. So the time series commercial, it's a technology company born in the Netherlands with offices now in the US, Canada, and Germany. They just inked a massive partnership with Siemens as well, which is a massive engineering firm. Siemens is literally in everything that we touch, from all manufactured goods. And we created a 30-second commercial for them to be distributed on their website, LinkedIn. So they'll have very targeted ad spend on LinkedIn on who they're going to distribute it to, hoping to reach economic buyers of companies they're looking to work with. And then in email campaigns too. So there's a direct ROI and a tie back to sales. And then another new product that they released is a smart app suite. So these are this is a 45-second commercial about one of the industries that the smart app suite plays in, which is in the marine space. So you can see how there's two specific style of commercials, both utilized for website, LinkedIn, targeted spend, and email targeted as well. And then on the flip, two Red Bull videos that we created, clearly Red Bull in the B2C space. So that you're going to be seeing these distributed on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and then Red Bull TV has its own proprietary platform as well. So you can see Red Bull Open Ice that was actually featured in Sports Illustrated as well. And then Red Bull Crashed Ice here in Fenway Park in Boston, home. So that was a really exciting event to be a part of. We're all experiencing it. I'm not going to lie, being a business that's very heavily dependent on being near people made it a little bit more difficult for us. Like our spring, all the spring shoots and summer shoots that we had planned have obviously been postponed as they're just dependent on the outcome of the day-to-day with COVID. So, but in a situation like this, it's a bit sink or swim for a lot of us as well. It's not easy times. Fortunate to have a job where I'm able to sit in the confines of my own condo today. So thankful for that. But we've pivoted heavily and entering post-production, animation, and design-only engagements. You'll find that a lot of companies have, and a lot of you today as well, perhaps too, have a massive backlog of footage from events that you filmed, previous shoots, whatever it may be, or just design in general. So how do you get clever, utilize what you already have, and then distribute that in a way that really targets your demographic? Because there's a lot more eyes than ever on all these screens, web, tablet, phones as well. So really being creative, an opportunity to really think about what your initiative, what your brand is about, an opportunity to come at your target audience in a different way, and strategically utilize what you already have to really resonate with that end audience. So to bring it back to us again, for us, it's a total rebranding behind the scenes. We're redoing our website, releasing a commercial reel, and really digging into the weeds to understand better who we are and portray that to the public. And then with our customers, really helping them to succeed with post-production and animation only engagements. So for you, it might not be just on content creation, but I'm sure you can utilize that tidbit from us and ask yourself, how can you get creative in an instance like this when nobody saw it coming and you're forced to pivot so quickly in order to make it happen and continue business as is. So that's really all I had for today.
Right.
For
Thank you, Evan. That's been
thank you,
great information, and I encourage everybody to make sure you connect with Evan on LinkedIn if you've got other questions. That'll give you an easy way to get together and talk to him. I definitely would suggest that you reach out to Kayla, reach out to me on LinkedIn. Let's make sure we're connected. Everybody has my email address. I now have yours by virtue of you being here. So feel free to set up time so that we can talk in greater detail and see what we can do to help you. One of the reasons that we're set up is to be here as a resource. We just completed our transition this week to be under the umbrella of Players Philanthropy Fund so that we can go out and get nonprofit funding and grant funding and other things to run the programs that we want to do to help support everything that you're doing and the great work you're all doing in the communities. I encourage you to look at the other webinars, see what's there, see what you're interested in, but also tell us what is missing. If there's topics you want to spend more time on or you'd like to have us cover, we definitely have people in our network that we can bring in for a lot of different types of topics, and we want to know what you're interested in hearing about. This weekend we will have evaluations going out, so would love to hear what you thought of this session and any of the prior sessions. So those will go out over the weekend. And we also have a COVID-19 page of resources we've been developing and continue to add to. If you have resources from your organization, or if you've seen interesting resources, let us know. We want to make that an easy place for people to come and find activities for kids in their organization, training for their staff or their board of directors, webinars, all kinds of things going on. So we're continually updating that every weekend. So make sure you send us whatever you have. And again, Kayla and I are here to be a resource to you at any point that we can. Make sure you take advantage of that. And we appreciate you taking the time to come on. We're happy to stay on for a while, answer any questions, or just chat and hang out for a few minutes. I know a lot of people have to run, but in these days of Zoom meetings, it seems like they're back to back to back, right? They're on the hour and everybody's going, and it's like, okay, I finished my 10. Now I got to jump onto my 11 and then my 12. I know yesterday, I think I was going 8 until 4, like straight through. I think I had 15 minutes between sessions at some point, but it gets hectic. And, it's when you're looking for a break, feel free, jump on, feel free to share our resources and let us know how else we can help. Thank you, everybody, for coming. We appreciate your time. Evan, thank you so much for sharing all of the great information that you did today. And we appreciate your time and your input. And hopefully we'll see more of you next week. Thank you.
Thank you, Roy. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.